The sun burned fiercely above the endless desert, painting the horizon with golden heat. Mira pulled her scarf tighter across her face, but grains of sand still slipped in, stinging her lips. The desert was alive with restless wind and dunes, stretched in every direction, rising and falling like waves on an ocean made of dust. Most people would have turned back long ago, yet she and her small team pressed on. Something waited here, something hidden beneath the sands. Tom walked beside her, his boots sinking with each step. He carried the scanner, a heavy machine that clicked and hummed as it read the ground. The screen showed faint lines deep below the surface, lines too straight to be natural. He stopped suddenly and called out, his voice muffled by the stormy wind. "Myra, look at this. The signal is stronger here." She hurried to his side, leaning close to see. On the screen, bright shapes glowed, forming a square outline buried under meters of sand. It was no cave, no rock formation. It was something built, something old. Mira felt a shiver run down her spine. For months, they had searched these shifting dunes, following rumors of strange metal fragments carried by storms. Now it seemed they had found the source. The rest of the team gathered. Lena, the youngest member, pushed her goggles up and squinted at the scanner. "It looks like a building." But what kind of building could survive under sand for so long? "Not one built by humans," Tom said firmly. "The metal fragments we studied are not from Earth. This could be the first true proof of alien presence here." The words made everyone silent. They had all thought the same, but hearing it aloud gave it weight. Mira steadied her voice and nodded. "Then we dig." They set up camp quickly. Tents were anchored with steel rods to withstand the shifting dunes. A generator hummed as it powered their tools. Shovels and machines roared as the team began to move the sand away, working in long shifts. Hours passed, and the sun slowly dipped toward the horizon, painting the desert with fire-red light. Sweat soaked their clothes, but their energy grew with every layer removed. Bit by bit, something strange began to show Dodd. At first, it looked like dark stone, but when Tom brushed it clean with gloved hands, it shone with a faint metallic glow. The surface was smooth, not cracked or worn. Despite lying buried for what must have been centuries, it looked untouched, almost alive. Mira ran her hand across it and felt a pulse, faint but steady, like the heartbeat of something enormous sweeping beneath the ground. Lena stepped back, wide-eyed. "This is no ruin. It feels like it's waiting." Night fell, but they did not rest. Lights from their camp lit the excavation site, casting long shadows across the strange surface. By dawn, they had revealed an entire wall, towering above them. It stretched farther than the light could reach, disappearing beneath the sand again. Symbols were carved into the surface, sharp and curved, glowing faintly in the dark. None of them matched any language on Earth. Tom traced one with his hand and shook his head. "It almost feels like the wall is reading us as much as we are reading it." Myra gathered the team. "We have found something no one else on Earth has seen. This is not just history. This is a story older than our world, and we have been chosen to uncover it." The desert around them was silent, as if listening. The shifting sands whispered against the metal wall, but nothing moved. Still, a sense of power filled the air, something deep and ancient. The team could not shake the feeling that the desert itself had been guarding this secret, waiting for the right moment and the right people. By afternoon, they uncovered the outline of a doorway. It was taller than any person, framed with glowing symbols that pulsed like stars. No hinges, no seams, just a smooth surface as if the wall had grown around it. Mira stepped forward and placed her hand in the center. The surface was warm, humming faintly. She pulled back quickly, her heart racing. The wall felt alive. Tom adjusted his scanner again, and the screen flashed. The signal comes from behind this door. Whatever lies beyond is giving off power like nothing I have measured before. The team exchanged nervous glances. Lena's hands trembled as she held her notebook. What if it's dangerous? Mira looked at her firmly. Then we face it. Together, humanity has always stepped into the unknown. That is why we are here. The desert wind rose again, sweeping across the dunes and howling through their camp. The sound almost seemed like a voice, warning or welcoming, none of them could tell. But Myra did not waver. She felt the weight of history pressing upon her. The sense that their discovery was more than just science. It was destiny. As night came again, the stars filled the sky, shining above the silent desert. The glowing symbols on the wall echoed the starlight, as if they were connected. The camp was quiet, each explorer lost in thought. They all knew sleep would not come easily. Beyond that door lay answers no human had ever touched, truths that could change their future. The forgotten tomb beneath the shifting sands had been found, and its secrets were waiting to awaken. The night was restless in the desert. The wind moved across the dunes, carrying the sound of shifting sand, but inside the camp no one slept. Myra stood near the uncovered wall, her lamp casting a pale circle of light against the strange surface. The glowing symbols pulsed softly, like the steady rhythm of stars in the sky above. She could not turn her eyes away from them. Every line, every curve felt deliberate, as though a message waited for her to understand. Tom joined her, rubbing his eyes. He'd been studying the scanner all night, searching for patterns. The signal is strongest here, he said, pointing at the smooth center of the doorway. It is like the heart of this entire structure. Something behind it is still active. Mira touched the wall again, her hand trembling. The metal felt warm even in the cool desert air. She drew back quickly, her breath uneven. It is not just a door. It feels alive, like it is aware we are here. Lena came running with her notebook clutched to her chest. Her eyes shone with both fear and wonder. I mapped the symbols. Some look like constellations. They are not the same as the ones above us tonight, but they might match a different sky. Maybe a sky scene from another world. The words sank into the group like a stone into deep water. Another world. Another sky. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. If the symbols were star maps, then this door was not only a gateway to a buried tomb, but perhaps the knowledge of other places beyond Earth. The team began to clear the sand more carefully around the base of the doorway. Hours passed as shovels scraped and machines roared. At last, the full frame of the gate stood free, tall and commanding. The glowing symbols stretched from the ground to the very top, forming lines of light that crossed and met at the center. Tom stood back and studied the design. He shook his head slowly. This is no ordinary entrance. It is designed to open with purpose. It will not respond to force. It will respond to something else, something it was meant to recognize. Myra stepped forward again, her heart pounding. She placed both hands flat against the center of the gate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the symbols flared, bright and sharp like fire racing across the metal. The air grew heavy with energy, and a deep hum rolled through the ground beneath their feet. Everyone stepped back in shock as the lines of light shifted, rearranging themselves into new shapes. The star patterns glowed brighter, then faded into a single symbol no one had seen before. A circle with lines reaching outward like rays. Tom's scanner screamed with readings far beyond normal limits. It is opening. Get back. The hum grew louder until the sand around the gate trembled. Slowly, the smooth surface began to split down the middle. A seam appeared where none had been before, and with a grinding sound, the gate slid open. A rush of air poured out, cool and dry, as if sealed for centuries. The team stared into the darkness beyond, frozen by awe. Myra's voice broke the silence. "This is what we came for. We cannot turn back now." They prepared their lamps and stepped carefully inside. The tunnel stretched ahead, sloping down into the earth. The walls glowed faintly with the same soft light as the symbols, guiding their way. The air was strange, thick yet breathable, carrying a faint scent of metal and dust. Every sound echoed as if the walls themselves listened. The deeper they went, the more the desert felt far away. The tunnel was wide, tall enough for the statues of giants, and yet silent except for their footsteps. Lena whispered, "It feels like walking into the heart of another world." Tom shone his lamp along the walls. He noticed carvings etched deep into the metal, showing figures unlike humans. Tall beings with long arms and narrow heads, standing beside shapes that looked like stars and ships. The carvings told a story, though none of them could yet read it. Still, the meaning was clear. Whoever built this place had not been human. After a long descent, the tunnel opened into a massive chamber. Their lamps could not reach the ceiling. The walls stretched into shadow, lined with tall statues standing in perfect rows. Each statue was shaped like the figures from the carvings, with sharp angles and eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the light. Myra's steps slowed. The statues looked so real that it felt as if they might move at any moment. The team gathered in the center of the chamber, their voices hushed. Lena hugged her notebook tightly, her hands shaking. "They are not just decorations. They were placed here for a reason. Guardians, maybe." Myra looked at each statue in turn, her heart heavy with unease. "If they are guardians, then this tomb is no ordinary resting place. Something of great importance is hidden here." Tom raised his scanner again. The readings were off the scale, stronger than anything he had ever measured. The source is below us, deeper still. But to reach it, we must pass whatever trials this place sets. The chamber was silent, but the statues seemed to watch them, unmoving yet alive. The air grew colder, and the faint hum of the tomb returned, steady and deep. The explorers stood together, their lamps flickering against the shadows. They knew. They had crossed a boundary no one else had ever dared. The tomb had welcomed them, but it also carried a warning. The hidden gate had opened, and there was no turning back. The chamber was vast and silent, filled with rows of tall statues that stretched into the shadows. Each one stood with its arms crossed over its chest, carved with sharp detail, as if frozen in the middle of life. Their eyes glimmered faintly in the light of the explorers' lamps, making it difficult to tell whether they were truly stone or something else. The air was heavy, thick with dust and the faint scent of metal. Every sound the humans made echoed loudly, as though the chamber itself wanted them to remain quiet. Myra moved slowly between the rows of statues, her lamp shaking in her hand. The glow revealed faces long and narrow, with patterns carved into their heads and shoulders like armor. She whispered under her breath, "They look too real." Lena stayed close behind, hugging her notebook tightly against her chest. Her wide eyes darted from one statue to the next. "Do you think they were once alive?" Tom examined the surface of one statue with a careful hand. It was cold and smooth, not like stone at all. His scanner buzzed softly, picking up strange readings. "This is not rock. It is a kind of alloy I have never seen. It reacts faintly to the scanner, as if energy still flows within." The word sent a chill through the group. Lena stepped back quickly, her boots scraping against the metal floor. "So they are machines, not statues at all?" No one answered. Right away, the silence was so thick that Mira could almost feel it pressing against her ears. She looked around the chamber again, imagining the statues moving, their long arms stretching, their eyes glowing brighter. She forced herself to breathe slowly and calmly, though her heart raced with unease. At the far end of the chamber stood a platform raised above the floor. Strange carvings spiraled up its sides, and in its center was another glowing panel like the ones on the gate outside. Mira knew instinctively that this was the way forward. She motioned to the team. "We need to reach that platform. Whatever lies deeper is waiting for us there." The group moved carefully between the statues, every step echoing in the chamber. Each moment stretched long and tense. The silence was so complete that it seemed unnatural, as though the guardians themselves demanded stillness. Lena kept glancing behind, convinced one of the figures would suddenly follow Dot as they reached the base of the platform. The panel flickered to life, casting light across their faces. Symbols appeared, shifting into shapes they had not seen before. The glowing lines spread out across the floor, running between the statues and forming a vast web of light. Myra stepped back quickly, her hand flying to her sidearm, though she knew it would be useless against whatever force this tomb contained. The statue's eyes glimmered brighter, small points of light flickering within the dark sockets. For a moment, nothing else happened, yet the team stood frozen with fear. The chamber seemed alive now, pulsing with hidden power. Tom raised the scanner again, his voice low. Energy is flowing through them. They are not statues at all. They are waiting. The weight of his words settled over them like a shadow. Myra tightened her grip on the lamp. Guardians. They were left here to protect this place. Maybe to test whoever enters. Lena whispered, her voice trembling. "Do you think they will attack us?" Myra shook her head slowly. "Not yet. They are watching, waiting for us to make a choice." She looked back at the glowing panel on the platform. The symbols shifted again, arranging themselves into patterns that reminded her of puzzles or riddles. She realized what the tomb wanted. It is not strength they demand from us. It is understanding. We must solve this to move forward. Tom studied the patterns carefully, tracing them in the air with his finger. It looks like mathematics. The same language the puzzles on the outer gate used. Whoever built this place wanted to test knowledge, not just power. Together, the team knelt around the panel, studying the glowing designs. The lines twisted into shapes of stars and numbers, connecting in strange but clear ways. They worked quickly, Myra guiding, Tom testing, and Lena recording. Each time they touched a symbol, the light shifted, as if the tomb itself responded. To their thoughts, the statues remained still, but their eyes glowed faintly, as if following the explorer's every move. The air was filled with tension, like a storm waiting to break. After long minutes of work, the final symbol clicked into place. The entire chamber brightened as the floor lit with flowing energy. The statue's eyes dimmed again, fading back into faint glimmers. The panel on the platform sank into the ground, revealing a staircase spiraling deeper into the tomb. The silence returned, but now it carried a different weight. Mira exhaled slowly, her body relaxing just slightly. We passed the first test. Lena clutched her notebook with shaking hands. What if the next is harder? Mira looked down the newly revealed stairs, the shadows seeming endless below. Then we will face it as we faced this one. Together, the group gathered their courage and prepared to descend. Behind them, the silent guardians stood motionless. Once more, their glowing eyes dim and watchful. The explorers knew the statues were not gone. They had only been waiting, and they would wait again, ready to judge the next steps of anyone who dared to pass. The chamber grew quiet again, but the memory of its living silence clung to the team. Each of them carried the same thought in their hearts. The guardians had allowed them to continue, but the tomb would not make the path easy. The tomb was not just a place of rest. It was a trial, and humanity had only just begun its test. The staircase stretched downward into shadows, each step glowing faintly under their boots. Mira led the way, her lamp cutting through the dim light, while Tom and Lena followed close behind. The silence of the guardians above still lingered in their minds, making every sound feel heavier than it was. The air grew cooler as they descended, carrying a faint hum, like the distant beat of a drum buried deep in the walls. At last, the stairs opened into another chamber, smaller than the films. All of statues, but no less strange. The walls curved in a perfect circle, lined with panels that glowed faint blue. In the center of the room stood a pedestal shaped like a tall column, its surface covered in moving patterns of light. The moment they stepped inside, the doorway behind them closed with a heavy thud, sealing them in. Lena gasped and clutched her notebook tighter. "We are locked in." Tom adjusted his scanner, frowning at the readings. There is energy everywhere, flowing in circles. It feels like the room itself is alive. Mira stepped forward slowly, her eyes fixed on the pedestal. The moving lights formed shapes, breaking apart and reforming into new ones. Some looked like stars, others like numbers, and still others like puzzles waiting to be solved. She placed her hand near the surface, but did not touch it yet. The lights seemed to react anyway, twisting into more complex shapes as if aware of her presence. "This is it," Myra said softly. "The first real trial." Tom moved beside her, studying the changing patterns. "These are not random. They are problems. Look here. This is mathematics. They are testing logic." Lena leaned forward, her fear giving way to wonder. Then maybe this is how the builders chose who was worthy. Not through weapons or strength, but through thought. The idea gave them a spark of hope, though the pressure of the challenge weighed on their shoulders. Myra nodded firmly. "Then we solve it together." The pedestal shifted, and a new puzzle appeared. Lines of light spread across the floor, forming a maze that reached from one side of the chamber to the other. Strange symbols marked the paths. Tom bent down to study them, his mind racing. "It is like a map, but only one path leads to the center. We need to find it." They traced the glowing lines carefully, debating each turn and mark. Every time they chose wrong, the room vibrated and the lights flashed red. The sound made their hearts race, as if the tomb itself was warning them not to fail again. But together, they adjusted their steps, following the correct sequence until the maze faded into the floor. A second puzzle rose, this time filling the air with floating symbols. They spun slowly, forming patterns like constellations. Mira reached out, moving them carefully, trying to match them to the shapes she remembered from the carvings on the outer wall. Lena pointed excitedly. "That one matches the star pattern we saw before. It might be a code." They worked together, shifting stars into position until the pattern glowed brightly and locked in place. The chamber responded with a low hum, as if approving their progress, but the puzzles did not stop. One after another appeared, each harder than the last. Some required numbers, others demanded shapes, and some mixed both together. Sweat formed on their brows as time stretched on. But they did not give up. Every failure made the chamber shudder with warning, yet every success brought a soft glow of light that filled them with determination. Lena, despite her fear, began to solve several on her own. She pointed at one sequence of numbers and said, quickly, "It is like a rhythm repeating. If we follow it, the answer is simple." She was right, and the puzzle dissolved with a flash of blue light. Myra smiled proudly at her. "You are braver than you think," she said. Finally, the pedestal presented the last trial. The light stretched high into the air, forming a sphere filled with shifting patterns. It pulsed slowly, waiting. Tom studied it closely. This is the hardest. It combines everything: math, stars, logic. It is the heart of the test. Myra placed her hand against the sphere, closing her eyes. She thought of the carvings, the glowing constellations, the numbers, and the repeating patterns. She pieced them together in her mind, weaving them into a single answer. The sphere responded to her touch, the patterns slowing and aligning, until at last they formed a shining map of stars across the chamber ceiling. The map was vast, filled with countless points of light. Among them glowed one small star brighter than all the rest. Mara's heart caught in her chest as she realized what it was. "It is Earth," she whispered. The chamber filled with soft light, and the sphere dissolved, leaving only the shining star map above. The pedestal sank back into the floor, and a doorway opened on the far side of the chamber. The trial was complete. The three explorers stood together, breathless and overwhelmed. They had passed the test not through force, but through unity and thought. The tomb had judged them and allowed them to continue. Lena wiped her brow and smiled nervously. If this was only the first trial, what will the next be like? Mira looked at the glowing star map, one last time, her voice steady. "Whatever it is, we will face it. This tomb does not want us to take its secrets easily. It wants us to earn them." They stepped through the new doorway, leaving the chamber of puzzles behind. The hum of the tomb followed them, deeper and stronger, as if the heart of the buried structure was calling them closer. The first trial had tested their minds. What waited ahead would test far more. The new doorway led the explorers into a long corridor that sloped downward. The walls glowed with a steady light, guiding their steps as though the tomb itself wanted them to continue. Mira walked at the front, her lamp held high though she no longer needed it. The glow from the walls was enough to see by, but she kept the lamp ready. In this place, she trusted nothing fully. The air grew cooler as they descended. Unlike the dusty silence of the upper chambers, this passage felt alive. A faint vibration ran through the floor, as if something deep below pulsed with energy. Tom checked his scanner often, shaking his head in disbelief. The readings are incredible. Whatever is down here is still active after all these centuries. Lena, walking behind them, hugged her notebook against her chest. Active means alive, does it not? What if it is not just a machine, but something more? Her question hung heavy in the air, but no one answered. The tomb had already shown them it was not like anything built by human hands. They had faced statues that were more than stone and puzzles that seemed to test their minds directly. Now, with each step deeper, the weight of the unknown grew stronger. At last, the corridor opened into a vast circular chamber. The ceiling was so high that their lamps could not reach it. In the center floated a great sphere of silver light, suspended above a wide pedestal. It turned slowly, casting shimmering waves across the chamber walls. Symbols glowed faintly on the floor, forming a circle around the sphere. The team stopped at the edge of the circle, staring in silence. None of them had ever seen anything so strange and beautiful. The sphere pulsed gently, as though breathing. Myra stepped forward, unable to resist. "This is the heart of the tomb," she whispered. Tom scanned quickly, but his device flickered and went dark. He slapped it in frustration. The energy is overwhelming. The scanner cannot read it. Lena's eyes widened as she scribbled. "Quickly. It is waiting for us. I feel it." Myra slowly reached out her hand. Her fingers brushed the edge of the sphere, and at once her vision went white. The world around her vanished. She stood in a place of light and shadow, her body weightless. Voices echoed faintly, not in words, but in emotions, sorrow and hope woven together. Images began to form around her. She saw tall beings, the same as the statues above, walking across a great plain under two suns. They moved with grace, their long arms carrying tools of light. Around them stretched a city of shining towers, rising higher than anything humans had ever built. The beings looked strong and proud, yet their faces carried a deep sadness. The vision shifted. Mira now saw war. The shining city burned, struck by fire from the sky. Dark shapes rained down, tearing the towers apart. The tall beings fought bravely, but their enemies were endless, shadows with no faces, moving like storms. The beings fell, one after another, until their great city was nothing but ruin. Another image came. Survivors stood together, weak and weary. They carried with them glowing spheres, the same as the one Myra touched. The beings gathered in a chamber much like the one she now stood in. One raised his arms, speaking with heavy sorrow, his voice echoing inside Myra's mind. Though she could not understand the words, the meaning filled her heart. They had lost their world. Their knowledge, their culture, their dreams would all be erased if they did not act. So they chose to hide their greatest treasure. Not gold or weapons, but memory itself. They built the tomb to hold their knowledge and their story. It would remain buried beneath the sands of another world, waiting for those worthy to find it. The beings looked upward and Mira saw stars, countless stars. Among them, one small blue world glowed bright. Earth. The images faded slowly, leaving Mira trembling. She fell back, gasping, and Tom caught her. Her lamp clattered to the floor. "Myra, what happened?" he asked urgently. She pressed a hand to her chest, still shaken. "I saw them, the builders. Their world is gone. This tomb is their memory, their gift to whoever finds it. And they chose us, humanity." Lena's mouth fell open. "They left it for us?" Myra nodded, her eyes shining with awe and fear. "Yes, they believed one day humans would be ready. They believed we would carry their story forward." The sphere pulsed brighter, as though confirming her words. For a moment, its light filled the chamber with warmth, wrapping the explorers in a strange comfort. Yet beneath that warmth was a warning. The memory was a gift, but it came with responsibility. Tom stepped back, his voice low. "If this is true, then what we hold is greater than anything in human history. But if others find it first, they might use it for power, not knowledge." The thought darkened the room more than any shadow. Mira looked at her companions, her expression firm. "Then we must protect it. We must carry their memory with honor." The sphere dimmed slowly, returning to its steady glow. The chamber fell, silent once again, but the weight of what they had learned pressed heavily on them. This was no treasure hunt, no simple discovery. They were now the keepers of a legacy left by a lost race. Mira turned toward the far side of the chamber, where a new passage opened. "The tomb is not done with us. There is more to learn, more to face." The three explorers stood together, gazing into the waiting darkness. They had uncovered the ancient memory, and with it, the truth of the forgotten tomb. But the path ahead would test them even more. The passage beyond the chamber of memories was narrow and winding. The walls glowed faintly, guiding Myra, Tom, and Lena as they stepped carefully over uneven floors. Each of them was quiet, lost in thoughts of the visions Myra had seen. The memory of the lost civilization weighed heavily on their hearts. They knew the tomb was not just a place of knowledge, it was alive, and it was watching. Suddenly, the floor beneath them vibrated. A low hum grew louder, echoing through the corridor. The explorers froze, their eyes scanning the walls. From deep recesses in the chamber, the faint outlines of the statues began to shimmer. "They're moving," Lena whispered, fear tightening her voice. Myra's heart pounded. "No, they are awakening." The group reached the end of the corridor and stepped into a massive hall. Rows of statues lined the walls, just as they had in the first chamber, but now every figure stirred. Slowly, the glowing eyes of the machines brightened, scanning the explorers. The statues lifted their long arms in unison, stepping forward with heavy, measured movements. Their feet did not make noise, but the air seemed to vibrate with their power. Tom raised the scanner, which immediately went wild with readings. This energy. It is more than anything I have ever measured. They are alive, but not alive in any way we understand. Myra took a deep breath. Stay calm. They do not seem aggressive yet. They are observing us. The machines paused, forming a semicircle around the explorers. A faint mechanical hum filled the air. Then, as if responding to something unseen, some machines lowered their arms and bowed slightly. Others remained upright, their eyes brighter, as if questioning the human's worth. Lena clutched Myra's sleeve. Why are some bowing and some not? They are deciding, Myra said quietly. They recognize us as the ones who solved the trials. Some agree we are worthy. Others do not. A sudden tremor shook the hall, causing dust to fall from the high ceiling. The dissenting machines moved forward with slow, threatening precision. Mira stepped in front of her team, her hands raised. We do not want to fight. We only seek knowledge. Let us prove we are worthy. One of the machines advanced closer, its eyes glowing red. It paused, tilting its head as if listening to something. Then it lifted a hand, pointing toward the center of the hall where a glowing platform hovered above the floor. The sphere of knowledge from the previous chamber had been placed there, pulsing with energy. Mira nodded to Tom and Lena. We need to protect the sphere and reach the platform. It is the key to calming them. They moved cautiously, stepping over the glowing lines on the floor. The machines watched every step, some stepping closer, testing their resolve. Dust swirled around them as the hum grew louder, vibrating through their chests. The sphere's glow increased, filling the hall with silvery light. Suddenly, a machine lunged toward Lena. Myra reacted instantly, grabbing her and pulling her back. The machine stopped, its eyes flickering between red and blue. Mira stepped forward, speaking softly. We mean no harm. We only want to continue the path set for us. For a long moment, silence reigned, except for the low hum of the hall. Then the machine lowered its arm, stepping back into line. Others followed, some bowing slightly as the sphere's light seemed to resonate with them. Tom studied the machines. They respond to the sphere. It is their guide, their purpose. If we place the sphere on the platform, they will understand we are worthy. Mira moved forward carefully, carrying the sphere. Lena followed closely while Tom guided them through the safest path. The descending machines still watched, but none blocked their way. Dust rose with every step, the hum of the hall building to a crescendo. Finally, they reached the glowing platform. Mira placed the sphere gently on its center. The moment it touched the surface, a wave of light shot upward, filling the hall completely. The machines stopped moving, their glowing eyes dimming to a calm blue. One by one, they lowered their arms and knelt. The hall went silent, except for the soft pulse of the sphere. Mira, Tom, and Lena stepped back, breathing in relief. The machines were no longer a threat. They had recognized the explorers as the chosen inheritors of the tomb's knowledge. Lena let out a long breath. We did it. They trust us. Myra looked around the hall, the kneeling machines forming a circle around the glowing platform. Not all of them, she said, but enough. The tomb has decided we are ready for the next stage. It will still test us, but we have proven ourselves. Tom nodded. The builders left this for humanity. Their machines are the guardians. They only act if someone is unworthy. We passed. The pulsing of the sphere grew steadier, and the hall seemed to relax as if a great weight had lifted. The explorers felt the energy settle around them, warm and reassuring. The tomb had allowed them to continue, but it had made clear the responsibility they now carried. Myra turned to her companions. The sphere shows us the way forward. The tomb is guiding us. We must follow it, wherever it leads. Together, they moved toward the next passage, leaving the awakened machines behind. The hum of the hall faded gradually, replaced by a soft, steady glow from the sphere. The tomb had judged them, and for now, the legacy of the lost civilization was entrusted to them. The adventure was far from over, but humanity had taken another step in proving its worth. The passage beyond the awakening machines was narrow but lit by a soft, steady glow from the walls. Mira, Tom, and Lena walked carefully, each step filled with a mixture of hope and anticipation. The tomb had tested them, shown them visions, and now guided them toward its ultimate secret. The air felt alive, humming faintly like a song too low for human ears. At last, the corridor opened into a vast chamber, unlike any they had seen before. The ceiling stretched high, carved with glowing patterns that shifted like water. Light flowed from the walls and floor, forming paths that led to a central pedestal. Hovering above it was a sphere of pure silver energy, brighter and more radiant than the one they had placed on the machine platform. It pulsed slowly, like the heartbeat of the tomb itself. Mira stepped forward, feeling the energy wash over her. She could see the paths of light leading from the pedestal to the edges of the room, connecting symbols that formed constellations, numbers and shapes beyond human understanding. The sphere seemed to respond to their presence, spinning gently in midair, casting shimmering light across the chamber. Tom studied it carefully, his voice awed. This is the culmination. The knowledge of the builders, their memory, and their gift. It is all here. Lena's eyes widened. All of it? Every secret they wanted to leave? Myra nodded slowly. Yes, and they left it for humanity. They believed we could carry it forward. The explorers approached the pedestal together. Mira reached out, touching the sphere with her hands. The energy coursed through her, not painfully, but like a rush of understanding. She saw stars, planets, and galaxies spinning across vast distances. Technology and knowledge filled her mind, ways to travel faster than light, ways to harness energy from stars, methods of healing that could save countless lives. Tom and Lena stood close, their hands hovering above the sphere. Slowly, they each touched it, and the knowledge flowed into them as well. The chamber filled with light, and for a moment, it felt as if time itself had stopped. They could see the builders again, watching over their work, smiling with a quiet hope that their legacy would continue. Myra realized that the tomb had not only tested them, but had also chosen them as the caretakers of this knowledge. Humanity was not the first to discover these secrets, but they were meant to continue the work. The builders had lost their world, but they had believed that another species could succeed where they had failed. The light from the sphere began to dim slowly, but the maps and symbols remained etched into the walls, glowing faintly. The machines in the previous hall had bowed in recognition, and now the chamber seemed to hum in approval. The tomb had accepted them. Lena spoke softly. We have a responsibility now. This knowledge could change everything. Myra looked at her companions, her voice steady. Yes, and we must be careful. This is not power to control, but wisdom to guide. The builders trusted us to use it well. Tom nodded. We must protect it and share it wisely. The universe is vast, and other worlds may hold challenges we cannot imagine. But now, humanity has a chance to meet them prepared. As they studied the chamber, Myra noticed a faint exit at the far side. It led to a staircase rising slowly toward the surface. The tomb had revealed its final gift and was guiding them back to the world above. With the sphere's energy embedded in their minds and hearts, they began their ascent, carrying the legacy of the builders with them. The desert outside looked the same as before, golden dunes stretching endlessly. Yet nothing felt ordinary now. The wind carried the knowledge of a civilization long gone, and the stars above seemed to shine brighter as if acknowledging their new guardians. Mira took a deep breath, feeling the weight and promise of the future. Lena smiled at her, her fear replaced with determination. "We have been chosen, Mira. We cannot waste this chance." Mira nodded. "We will honor their gift. Humanity will continue what they started. We are the caretakers of their memory, and one day, their dreams may live again through us." Tom looked out over the shifting sands, the sun rising in brilliant light. The tomb will be covered again, hidden by the desert. It will wait for the next generation until humanity is ready to continue learning. They walked together across the dunes, each step carrying the weight of responsibility and hope. The tomb beneath the shifting sands would remain a secret for now, but its knowledge and legacy were alive within them. Humanity had been tested, found worthy, and entrusted with a gift beyond imagination. As they reached the edge of the desert, Myra looked back one last time. The sands had already begun to shift, slowly covering the entrance. The tomb was gone from sight, but its story was no longer forgotten. The legacy of the builders was now in human hands, ready to shape the future. The explorers continued forward, ready to bring the wisdom of the ancient civilization into a world that would one day understand the greatness of what had been entrusted. To them, humanity had been chosen, and the journey had only just begun.